Time now for a little bit of culture news for you with Solange Moujon, who joins me on set. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jeannie.
So today we're going to talk about the life of a showgirl. That's Taylor Swift's new album. It's already a huge success, 2.7 million copies sold in the first 24 hours. And today you're going to take a deep dive into what exactly a showgirl is, whether Taylor Swift really is one, and how there's actually a strong French element to all of this too.
Yeah, despite the fact that perhaps now with the release of the album, the word showgirl will become synonymous with Taylor Swift. That's perhaps. Or that when we think about showgirls today, it's often a scantily clad Las Vegas dancers with all their feathers and their revealing over-the-top outfits. There is a strong historical argument to be had that the original iconic showgirls, that they were French. And discussing that history will actually help us understand and get to the bottom of this question of whether Taylor Swift is really a showgirl or if she isn't. So first, for some of the history of showgirls and why Paris and Montmartre are so important here. Well, when France entered the Belle Époque period, or the decades after the Franco-Prussian War in the 1870s, cafes and concert halls became popular places to drink, talk, watch entertainers of all sorts, men and women alike. And places like Le Chat Noir, which opened in Montmartre in 1881, but also the Folies Bergère, the Moulin Rouge, these places began to dabble with increasingly risque and lavish performances to attract audiences. And daring female dancers and singers lifting their skirts became a big draw for spectators who wanted something more modern than, say, theater or opera. Cabaret and the burlesque became hugely popular. This coincided with advancing wealth, changing values, and industrialization. And if you think about it, the French can-can dance is actually kind of like a machine, or a lot of human legs moving in unison. And the history of the French can-can dance is in itself quite fascinating. But when it comes to showgirls, the popularity of these Montmartre cabarets led to a stardom, a mystique, and a sexualization of these dancers/singers. This then traveled to the U.S. with the Ziegfeld Follies, Hollywood, and then Las Vegas. And we continue to see the fascination today in movies, TV shows, and the continued popularity of the Moulin Rouge, one of Paris's last remaining cabarets.
Right. So tell us a bit more about these original showgirls. Who were they?
Well, the list is a very long one, but I've chosen a few that stick out here in France, such as the Parisian dancer La Goulue, who was famous for her high kicks at the Moulin Rouge. She was referred to as the Queen of Montmartre for a time, but she ended up an alcoholic and destitute. And the fall from fame and grace is also an aspect of this showgirl persona, even today, and that fame is fickle and harder than it looks, which is a theme on Swift's new album. Then there is Mistinguett, whose stage name continues to be used in common French language to this day. Francophones can affectionately call a young girl a Mistinguett. As for the real person, her name was Jeanne Bourgeois, but she chose to be called Mistinguett without an E at the end of Mistinguett, because she said one less letter meant that her stage name, it allowed it to be bigger on billboards. And she was once the highest paid entertainer in the world. Like Taylor Swift, her stardom was unsurpassed, as was talk of her love life or her relationship with fellow star Maurice Chevalier. And she was particularly known for her very long legs, which she is said to have insured for what, at the time, what is now the equivalent of tens of millions of dollars today. It is also believed that Mistinguett was a spy during World War I, helping France win the war in 1918, much like the equally beloved showgirl, who is perhaps more well-known today. We see her there, Josephine Baker. The Franco-American singer and dancer also helped the French resistance as a spy, but she was above all worshipped for her singing, dancing, and overall mystique. And those are just a few in the long list of original showgirls.
All right, let's come back to Taylor Swift. What about her? Is she really a showgirl?
Well, in naming her album The Life of a Showgirl, Swift is indeed calling herself or her work a showgirl's work. And you could argue that that is what matters. And the fame and the money and the glitter and the dance routines and all of the adoration, all of these things work well with this showgirl image. But in the massive amount of reviews and opinion pieces that have come out since the album was announced and then released, there's been a lot of discussion about this. And some reviewers do not think that Taylor Swift is a showgirl. The Economist argues in Spend a Day in the Life of a Showgirl that the cabaret industry has lost its shine, that unlike Swift, real showgirls, well, their earnings vary and they are seasonal. But it also says that real showgirls, they play with the dual worlds of performance one moment and then ordinary, boring lives the other, which is actually something that Swift plays with too. She says she's just a normal girl and sometimes. Just like her feminist rhetoric, the sexualized versus the sexualized costumes. Meanwhile, Time argues that the modern-day showgirl is a woman dressed in a vintage costume posing for photographers on the Las Vegas Strip, or a prop in essence. Whereas Swift is not a member of the chorus, they argue, but rather her core identity is not that of a showgirl, but of a superstar. In the conversation, they say that Swift brings to light the hard work and that aspect of a showgirl's life, or, quote, tapping into a century of glamour while signaling that she too has worked hard and made sacrifices, end quote. But how far does that really go, I ask, when you are a billionaire, all that hard work? Well, in an opinion piece in the New York Times, Lissa Rogers argues that Swift is no showgirl, for she created the show she writes, or put simply, she is the boss. And that is where perhaps Swift is trying to change our collective minds in the idea of what a showgirl is, to move away from the male sexualized gaze or women being the victim of it and move towards an idea of an independent woman who dances and sings when and what she wants.
It's interesting. Thank you so much for that, Solange, and for that deep dive into Taylor Swift and her new album, The Life of a Showgirl. You're watching France 24. Stay with us.